The past 24 hours, I've literally heard horror stories that you wouldn't even see in a movie. So my friend was telling us that his neighbor's house got bombed, like right next to his house. And when it got bombed, all the family was wiped except for two of their children. So, you know, those kids came to their neighbor's house, my friend, and they were like, hey, can you please help us? Can you call the ambulance? Can you call the Red Cross? And while my friend was talking to them from his balcony, another bomb straight at the two remaining people from that family. Yesterday, on social media, we heard about how Maysar al-Rayes and his family were bombed, and there were also two survivors, his siblings. And again, when they were trying to find their family from under the rubble, another bomb got sent and killed them both. You can't tell me that Israel is not intent on wiping our bloodlines. They don't want a single person to survive in the families. They just don't. At this point, every single person I know has had someone get killed from their family, whether it's direct family or extended. I kid you not. My friend, her uncle and her aunts, 18 people, got killed yesterday as well. Every single family name has had a massacre. Every single one. Every single one. What's worse is that if you don't get killed from the bombs, you might die from the hunger or the contamination of water. I called my parents yesterday and my mom told me that everyone in the house she's in is either vomiting or has diarrhea because the water is contaminated. Israel isn't turning on the water. She also told me that the house where Jason is, Jason, the one who tweets that we all love his tweets that we haven't seen any tweet from because he has no internet, the place that he's in, everyone also is vomiting and has diarrhea, and he had to administer shots. And he's not a doctor. He had to administer shots to some of the people in that house because they had really, really bad vomiting. I genuinely don't know how much longer we're gonna have to give these updates, we're gonna have to tell these stories, we're gonna have to hear these things, but it's just getting worse. I just every day, I sleep 2 hours and I wake up and there's a lot of horror unfolding in my text messages. It's not normal. No one is built to withstand all of that. Don't tell us that we're strong, we're weak, we don't even have an army. We don't have an army, we don't have allies. We are colonized. We've been colonized for 80 years now, and now there's a genocide unfolding, and no one has stopped it yet. And you still want us to keep posting and talking about it? It's not easy to talk our friends getting killed and our families getting killed and showing the sacredness of their bodies just mutilated in front of the camera. That's not easy for us, and we're doing it, and we're speaking in your tongue. We're speaking English to try to get your attention and showing you that we are humans. And you still get some scumbags talking about how this started on October 7th. You still get those scumbags who are privileged spreading this false narrative.
Did you know America used similar tactics on natives as the ones being used against Palestinian people? It's your favorite LandBack baddie, and let's talk about the similarities between our past and the occupation of Palestine. What's happening in Gaza is an act of genocide and a conquest for land and resources. Similar to our own history, most people living in Gaza were forcefully removed from their homes and relocated to what is now known as the Gaza Strip. Between 1948 and now, what was once Palestinian land has been brutally occupied by Israeli settlers, much like what happened in America over the course of 400 years. And all this to make room for the construction of Israel, a Zionist-led capitalistic state. Many believe this is a religious conflict, and although religion plays a huge role in the justification and also fuels the fire, we have to understand that this is a violent occupation of land in the name of Western culture. And as we enter into Native American Heritage Month, Now is the time to draw these parallels and use our experiences to speak out against the atrocities these world leaders continue to commit and rise in solidarity for a free Palestine.
These are the equipments for a journalist that got murdered by the Israeli forces, so no matter if you're wearing them or not, you get killed.
Hey everyone, this is Bisan from Gaza. We're still alive. That was a really hard night. The bombing was all around Shifa Hospital. Where am I? In the north of Shifa Hospital, Shati refugee camp, and in the south, Tel El Hawa, or the southern area of the Rimal neighborhood. So the bombing was did not stop, literally did not stop, even for 2 minutes. Like every single minute there is a bombing. Different sounds, different weapons, and that's really scary. As for yesterday, between 4 to 6 p.m. there was a massacre in the Bridge refugee camp. So the Bridge refugee camp is a crowded place like Shati, like Jabalia refugee camp, and more than 56 people were killed. 56 civilians were in their homes in the middle area of Gaza Strip, not in the north, and they were killed. And as for the middle area, in general, not just the Bridge refugee camp, more than 126 people were killed just during the daytime yesterday. These are the updates. So this night, the Israeli army targeted Al-Azhar buildings or towers and the Al-Magusi buildings or towers, even though these towers were empty. People evacuated them. So they are not targeting people or terrorists. They are targeting infrastructure. They're saying it loud. If you survived our bombs, then you will not find any place to go, to live, to sleep, or to have anything. They are destroying our lands, our cities, our homes, even though they're empty.
This is the death tolls for some of the genocides that we're currently living through. We're going to start off with Congo with 5.6 million dead since 1998. We've got about 45,000 deaths per month, as well as an additional 7 million people displaced. The reasoning for this tragedy? Coltan, cobalt, and other precious minerals like gold. What you personally can do to help is stop buying brand new appliances such as smartphones, boycotting tech companies like Apple and Samsung and others. Also, no buying new electric cars either. Try to get them used. Next, we have the Palestinians, 12,000 of which have been killed since October 7th of this year. About 20,000 injured and 1.5 million displaced. The reasoning behind this genocide? Land. What can you personally do? You can donate, you can continue to be their voices, call your representatives, and continue to uplift Palestinian voices. Next, we have the people of Sudan, 9,000 killed in 6 months and 4.5 million displaced. What is the reasoning? Power. What can you personally do to help? You can donate, protest, and continue to be their voices once again. Next, the people of Armenia, 1.2 million of which have been killed, and 54,000 have been displaced since September of this year. Once again, overland. And again, what you can do to help is to continue to donate, be their voices, and continue to protest. Next on the list, we have my home country, Haiti, who got guns pointed at them a couple of days ago because they're trying to build a canal to make themselves more self-sufficient. And to help, you keep using your voice and you keep donating. I'm disgusted with our politicians, and you vote blue no matter who people, because all of this is happening under a Democratic president, yeah. Not only is he funding some of these genocides, he's denying them, yeah. And of course, Western powers has a hand, at least a pinky, in every single one of these genocides.
Are you tired of calling your representatives to no avail? We know they aren't listening to us because we're not the ones who have lined their pockets. So I think it's time we move another rung up the ladder. Now, if you're down to get dirty, there are avenues for direct action in the streets. But that's not accessible for everyone, so I have a modest proposal for you. What if I told you there are other people you can call? There are other people you could leave bad reviews for. So I came across this article on Intercept today. They're a great resource, highly recommend. And in it, they talk about kind of a secretive facility that the U.S. has been building in the Negev desert called Site 512. And there is a contractor out of Colorado who is working with Israel to make this happen. This is Bryan Construction, and they took that contract to build Site 512 on Palestinian land. They're based in Colorado Springs, but they do have other locations. You can go to their website to learn more. I left a scathing Yelp review for them today, and it felt good. It made me think how good it would feel if there were hundreds of bad reviews for companies like this. At the place I'm going to show above, you can find a list of defense companies, contractors, manufacturers based in the U.S. and abroad that have offices all over the place. Call them. You know, if the representatives aren't listening, maybe these people will. And here is a list of charities, U.S. charities, that help fund settlements, illegal settlements. As long as Palestinian people have no peace, neither should these people. Please interact, hit all the buttons, and let me know in the comments if you want more targets.
Something a lot of people don't know about my job as an ICU nurse is one of my responsibilities after a patient passes away is to provide post-mortem care. And people don't think about that. When I tell them I'm a nurse, they think about the life-saving. They don't really think about what happens after a patient passes away. But it's true. It's my job after a patient dies to remove the tubes and the lines that we've put in their body and to give them a bath and to tie a tag around their toe and put them in a body bag. And I want to say it's an honor to do that and to be part of someone's dying and to provide them dignity in some of their last moments on earth. But that being said, something that I haven't talked about on here is I actually have a little bit of a phobia of dead bodies. It's something I've really had to work through in my career in the same way that some nurses are afraid of blood or vomit. It's not rational and it's something I have to deal with because it's part of my job. But even after the countless times I've watched someone die and had to do postmortem care, I can't pretend like it isn't still upsetting to me. I had to zip another human being into a body bag this week and I can't pretend like that doesn't bother me. But I was thinking about that, how it bothers me. Me, with my fully grown adult brain and my medical knowledge. With my hospital full of supplies and the knowledge I made every effort humanly possible to save someone. Me, with my expensive white lady therapist. It still haunts me because the loss of even one human life is so unimaginably horrific. And then I think about the kids in Gaza. What do you think this kind of trauma does to those kids' brains? What kind of society are we leaving for the Palestinians who survive when these are the scars that everyone has? I'm upset and shaken up at 26 years old because I had to zip a person into a body bag yesterday. And it's my job and my brain's fully developed and I signed up for it. Those kids didn't. You are funding the circumstances that will ensure none of these kids ever have a childhood. Those kids are traumatized and don't even have parents anymore to hug them and comfort them. No child should have to pick up bodies in the street. If you're uncomfortable with that reality, you need to be speaking up about it. They're relying on you to look away, so do not look away. I hope you have hundreds of little reminders every day of what the Palestinian people are going through. As a matter of fact, I hope it haunts you. All power to my people. Free Palestine.
I am going to tell you about the last time I wasted breath on a Zionist. I was in college and the school administration had invited an IOF soldier to visit the campus and talk to the students about how great Israel is. And the IOF soldier did not come alone. He came with a woman who was like his American manager managing his tour across the universities. And I was a member of the Students for Justice in Palestine organization on campus, so obviously we overran the event and filled the seats with a bunch of pro-Palestinian people. And one of the things that we brought up, because we understand that Palestinians don't mean anything to Israelis, but Jews mean something to Israelis. One of the things we brought up was the catastrophe with the mass sterilization of Ethiopian Jewish refugees that had been let into Israel. Non-consensually, by the way. The Ethiopians had no idea what the government was doing to their body. And at this point, the IOF soldier wasn't even really talking. It was the American manager who was doing the talking and answering the questions. And she did the most astonishing thing. She said, well, if I was a refugee in a strange country, I wouldn't want the burden of having children to make that situation even more difficult for me. She, a white woman, centered herself in a hypothetical where she is the refugee, and she made an assumption about what she would and would not want if she were a refugee. She framed the situation to make the end result be that she would be grateful to the government that forcefully sterilized her without her consent and without her knowledge, completely bypassing the actual Ethiopian Jewish experience, completely bypassing the protests and the public outcries and the mortification that they felt once they learned what had been done to their bodies. I refuse to waste my breath on a people who do not have the capacity to recognize the humanity of others. The point of speaking out for Palestine is not to waste your breath on Zionists. They have already made their bed, and they're laying in it. They are not willing to recognize the human rights of others, and they are comfortable with that reality. The reason to learn and talk more about Palestine is to reach the people who still do not know, who still do not understand, before they get caught up in the twists and turns of Israeli propaganda. Basic human rights and equality afforded to all human beings is not a complex issue. This is not about violent and divisive religious ideology. This is about human rights. This is not about who the land belonged to 2,000 years ago. This is about the people who live on that land now, who are being punished for existing. This is not about the children of light versus the children of darkness. This is about a government with a massive military that is using that military might on millions of people that have no access to food, shelter, fuel, electricity. One of the tactics of Israeli propaganda is to make people feel stupid in the face of logic. Having access to food, water, electricity, fuel, and medical supplies while you are being indiscriminately carpet bombed is a simple matter of logic. Those people that feel too uncomfortable embracing that logic, those are the people that we need to reach. Don't waste your breath on Zionists.
If you have been fighting for Palestine and have started to feel hopeless or like we're not making any change, please watch this video. Israel, Zionists, and anyone who supports them are doing everything in their power to try to silence how much we've actually done. I marched alongside 300,000 people in DC, and they released that only 30,000 people were there. Starbucks are shutting down across the country. People are changing their stance on Israel every single day. People are learning, people are reading, doing their own research. We are converting thousands of Zionists to the truth. And Israel is terrified of this. And they do everything they can to make it seem like we are doing nothing. And to anyone who's feeling hopeless, I want to remind you just how much the power of the people can do. Black Americans went from being enslaved in America and considered 3/4 of a person to now holding office in our government, being CEOs of multi-million-dollar corporations, Black-owned businesses, having careers in every single profession. All because they came together and fought for hundreds of years. With boycotts, protests, sit-ins, they freed themselves. And now with their help, we're doing the same. Nelson Mandela, a Black man, became the president of South Africa after 45 years of apartheid. Like, can you wrap your brain around how incredible that is? And how many people told him, you're never going to be president. You're never going to make a difference. And it's crystal clear proof that what we're doing can and will make a difference. It's no longer if Palestine will be free, it's when. And the Israeli government knows this. I know it's frustrating that it's been more than 30 days without a ceasefire, without allowance of enough humanitarian aid. But trust me, we cannot give up now. This is what they want. They're holding out to see how long we can hold out. We cannot stop. I've gotten at least 30 DMs since October 7th telling me how I single-handedly taught someone what Palestine was. And now they are pro-Palestine. And now they're joining protests. They want you to give up. They want you to think it's not going to work. Trust me, it's not if, it's when Palestine will be free. Keep fighting. Keep taking steps forward. The world is waking up. We need to stand together more than ever now. You are making a difference whether you think so or not.
In light of the stories coming out of Palestine about the struggles of disabled individuals, I thought I would tell you guys today about Islamic perspectives on disability. So, disability is considered a natural state in Islam. What I mean by that is that it has been decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just something that happens to human beings. And it is not considered a deficit in spirituality or a punishment for doing something wrong, nor is it considered something special. In Islam, disabled people are rewarded spiritually for their struggles. And this is not just because of barriers that are put in place because of mankind, but also the barriers that are natural to one's disability, such as chronic pain. And there are a lot of concessions made for disabled people in Islam as well. So for example, if you are disabled and you're not able to get up and down off the floor, or even if you are not able to get out of bed, there are adaptations that are permissible in Islam for how to pray. And if you have a condition that prohibits you from doing things like making Hajj or fasting, then that is considered acceptable because after all, it's your natural state, you're just disabled. And disabled people have rights in Islam. So for example, it is a war crime to harm a disabled person, similar to how one cannot harm elderly people or women and children. And disabled people are entitled to be taken care of. They are entitled to means to support themselves, whether it be charity or work, and they're entitled to people helping them navigate their daily lives. As early as the year 700, there were Muslim leaders in the Middle East who developed programs and even centers where disabled people could go and either live, and some had work programs. There are also examples of disabled people being assigned servants, and not only did disabled people receive charity, but so did their servants receive a stipend from the government for taking care of them. And yes, it's true that Muslims are rewarded for helping disabled people, but it is also our obligation as part of our collectivist ideas of being one. In reflection of this, I think of all the spiritual and social violations that are happening as a result of the ethnic cleansing in Palestine. Because to Muslims, disabled people are not considered disposable. They are closely held, valued members of our society, our families. And even in these horrific times where you see people struggling to evacuate or care for themselves, you are also hearing stories of people who are seeing them and scooping them up and making sure they're okay. And even looking after them, knowing their vulnerable state and fearing that their family is not around to help care for them. We're seeing deep levels of compassion and care. And this is based in Islam.
You know, I'm actually very happy that these images are being shared around because it just exposes two things. How Israelis are projecting their own BS opinions onto other people, and also how certain lies that they told in the past do not really work out anymore. So a Hamas rocket landed in a kindergarten's courtyard at night when nobody was around, and this is the damage that, happened. And obviously this went viral, and all of them are like, so now you're not going to condemn that. We have been saying we condemn Hamas. Hamas, Hassan, Hamas, everything. Also, pro-Palestinian people will be the last people to tell you that throwing something onto an area where a lot of children are, no matter if it is at night where kids are not even there, is gonna be a war crime. It's not good. You don't do that. That is horrible and it's horrific, and everybody who does that should be held accountable. It's Israeli forces who tell you the opposite when they're doing it. So please don't project your feelings onto, kids being harmed onto us. We are very glad that no child was harmed in this. Or no one in general, because I don't want people to be harmed, period. Unlike some other people. Back to this image. This is the damage a Hamas rocket, explosive, whatever you want to call it, does. This apparently also happened in the same night. Once again, the damage that a Hamas explosive does. These are the weapons they have in their arsenal. Yet Israeli forces have been trying to tell us that certain, Hamas explosives backfire onto Palestine, onto Gaza, and create damage like this. Or damage like this. Damage like this, or even damage like this. That this is what can happen when, Hamas explosives backfire onto Palestine. Once again, the damage of a Hamas explosive. The damage of a Hamas explosive. The damage Israeli forces want you to believe a Hamas explosive can create. Just a quick question, does this look like something that could damage a hospital in this way? Is that what it can do? Does it have superpowers now? Babes, we're not the ones denying civilian casualties or crimes or anything like that. That is purely on you. I have to start off this video by saying that this is for purely educational reasons. Whenever I try to talk about the Nakba that happened in Palestine, where over 750,000 Palestinians were either displaced, unalived, or ethnically cleansed, I will always have people in my comments being like, oh, it didn't happen that way. It wasn't that bad. You know, they went, willingly. And most of the times it's either Zionists or Israelis. But hey, since you don't want to believe me, maybe you're actually going to believe the soldiers that committed these acts, that were part of the Nakba. The following clip I'm going to show you is part of a documentary about Tantura, one of the cities that fell victim to the Nakba.
הרגת, אז עשית דבר טוב. הייתי מוכן להרוג. לא דיברתי עם אף אחד על זה. אשתך להגיד שחיית איתה הרבה מאוד שנים, אני מניח. לא דיברת? אף פעם לא סיפרתי לה. מה, אני אספר לה שאני הייתי רוצח? למרות שאתה הגדרת, אתה תהרג את כולם. הייתי אני ככה, תפקידים של שימה. ויאללה, רפו אותם כמו פרות, תפניהם. בזמן קרב, אם מישהו ירים ידיים, משהו כזה, לא לקחתי שבויים. כמה אתה חושב אנשים הרגת ככה? לא ספרתי. אני לא יכול לדעת בחיי. הוא תפס אישה, חתיכה צעירה, נכנס לבית אחד, הכין חרב מיטות, ומיטה פרצה לזיין אותה. הילדה חזרה, זה סמרטוטיה. אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה. אתה מבין? אבל זה מכוער מאוד. היה לנו בחור אחד, הוא נפטר, הוא היה פרא אדם. הוא לקח פשוט מאוד, ורצח אותם בתוך המכלאות. חוטי ברזל כאלה, עגולים כאלה, אספו כל הגברים. הם יושבים שם, כל העם, על הרצפה, ובא מישהו ולוקח תת מקלע ומתחיל זה, מחליף מחסנית. מה אתה חושב? זה חבר'ה שלקחו את הלוויורים ורדפו אחרי חבר'ה ושרפו אותם. זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני לא אדבר על זה. מלחמה זה מלחמה. לא כל אחד יכול לדעת מה זה מלחמה. ואני אומר, מי שלא היה שם, לא יכול לשפוט אף אחד אחר.
If you're interested in more, I would highly recommend watching the entire documentary. But here you have it out of their own mouths, their actions. And the thing is, these men are not talking about these actions as if they're regretting them. As you could see, some of them were laughing. They're looking back at it gleefully. The Nakba happened in 1948. These men are some of the first settlers. I will never in my life understand going through something so horrific in Europe and Germany at that time, and then going to another place and doing something similar to other people. Back then, there was no Hamas to fight. So what's your excuse now? Who was the enemy? The innocent Palestinians that they unalived, that they displaced, that they essayed. None of these men ever had to face any type of consequences for their actions. None of them. They're all living freely. Some of them are even celebrated as heroes and veterans. Men like Ezra Yachin, for example, are still sent out to other soldiers to give them morale. And in his speech, for example, he's telling them to unalive every single Arab they see, their neighbors included, no matter if that Arab is just an innocent civilian or Hamas. If you see them, unalive them. That's basically what he is telling those soldiers. And it's not like this is a secret. Western nations knew that this was going on. They didn't care. They still don't care. They're still funding it. They're supporting it. And they're allowing it to happen. The UN is allowing it to happen. Every single nation standing in solidarity with the Israeli government is allowing this to happen. I have so many Israelis in my comments telling me, you don't know history. You're uneducated. This is your history, babes. This is what the people in your country did back then to get the land that they live on now. The issue isn't that I or anybody else does not know history. The issue is that you know history and you don't care about it, because in your eyes, doing what you are doing to Palestinians is okay because you dehumanize them. You don't see them as humans. You don't see them as animals. You see them as nothing, and hurting nothing and unaliving nothing means nothing. So it's okay for you. And the way you know that these men are comfortable with their actions is that they are on camera. They're showing their faces. Their names are revealed because they don't think think that what they did is bad, so they don't fear repercussion. And also, why should they? They haven't had to suffer through any type of repercussion, even after this documentary came out. These are the actions you're supporting. And I mean, I don't have to tell you. You already know. I'm making this video for the people who might not be as educated, who might still have some type of humanity in them, who might not see brown, Muslim, or Palestinian life as worthless. It is very frustrating that you will never see this type of footage, posted by Western media. You will only see activists and people online talking about it because, that wouldn't fit in the agenda. While it is frustrating, it will never ever stop us from talking about what actually happened back then and what is still happening right now. A country built on a history like this will never be a fair or just country, especially since they're keeping up those morals and never talking about said history. They're already invading the West Bank while everybody's focused on Gaza. They're starting. If we don't speak about this, there will be something along the lines of a second Nakba. And who knows how many Palestinians will be left in their homeland afterwards. I have to end this video the way that I started it so it can stay up. This is for purely educational purposes.
Hi, this is the office of Andrew Clyde.
Yes.
I am a constituent of Andrew Clyde's, and I would just like some clarity as to why he is not at this point currently in support of a ceasefire in Gaza.
Yeah, well, the congressman, along with 412 members, agreed to the resolution, I believe that was last Wednesday. That was just a declaration that the House stands with Israel in its defense against Hamas and its support for Israel.
Right, support for Israel. And I understand that that is the line that they're using, but I just want to understand why that means that they can subject the people in Palestine and in the Gaza Strip in particular to collective punishment, because 47% of the people in the Gaza Strip are children. So they haven't done anything. They're not affiliated with Hamas.
Yeah, and I believe more than 75% voted for Hamas as the ruling party in the Gaza Strip.
Including the children? The 47% of them that are children?
The voting population that voted Hamas as their government.
Right, but 47% of the people in the Gaza Strip are children. So they're also indiscriminately being murdered.
And when Hamas crossed the border into Israel, they just killed babies and raped women and killed men and civilians in front of each other. You realize that as well, right?
Okay, so then the position of Andrew Clyde is that because the children in Israel were killed, that it justifies the murder of children in the Gaza Strip.
When Hamas crossed the line into Israel, they purposely target children, women, and civilian men. Israel is taking out an existential threat, and it's not the Israeli people's fault that Hamas is using human shields in terms of babies and women. And I'm sure you are well aware that when Israel moves in, they do knocking bombs, which do no damage at all. They tell people to evacuate. They drop flyers. They call the families of the people. And it's Hamas that are blocking people from leaving, that are using these people as human shields. You also realize that,
Okay, do you realize that they told people to evacuate to the south of Gaza, and then they also bombed the south of Gaza? So this idea that they're giving people notice when they're corralling people into the Gaza Strip and they're not giving them any option to leave the Gaza Strip, they're forcing them to stay there, and then they're bombing them indiscriminately. So at this point, the whole human shield thing isn't really working when you're quite literally not allowing people to leave and you're just bombing them day in and day out. At this point, that there's a term for that. It's called collective punishment. And there are plenty of people who have no affiliation in the Gaza Strip with Hamas who are just being killed.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You're not the first person to use the collective punishment line. Where is that coming from? Is that an organization? Is that a news story that you see that on? Because you're not the first person to call it the collective punishment line.
Yeah, okay, I can answer. Yeah, it's a term that is referred to the complete indiscriminate. Yeah, that's a term that has taken up popularity because people see it and they see how it's applicable to this situation. It's not something that we've just been saying because one person told us. It's a term that applies.
Yes.
That's where it came from.
Collective punishment over the ages against Jews as well. You realize that too. So also the opposite applies, where they want to, when the term literally is being said, from the river to the sea, it's the eradication of the Jewish population. So that's collective punishment for Jews, and that's been going back since, BC era.
What is the punishment that is being utilized against the Jewish people because Palestinians say that they want their land from the river to the sea, that is their land? What punishment is being inflicted upon the Jewish people for that?
The murder of settlers, civilians that are inside Israel. That's the punishment.
Who is murdering the people of Israel at this point.
Hamas
At this
crossed the
point.
border on October 7th.
Right. That is one incident in a 75-year history. And we're talking about at this point, the last 3+ weeks, people have been murdered indiscriminately in the Gaza Strip. So what you're saying to me at this point is that Andrew Clyde is in support of indiscriminately murdering people in quote unquote self-defense. But when does self-defense stop being self-defense and when does it become just an atrocity?
That is exactly in the case of Hamas, and when they're going across and firing rockets into Israel when Israel's just existing. I can pass your support along to the ceasefire resolution, but I can just let you know that the congressman voted in favor of the resolution that passed last Wednesday and continues to stand with Israel in defense against Hamas.
And stand in defense of murder of children. Okay, so thank you for the clarity on that. Goodbye.
Not at all.
Idiots.
Jamud Hamid, 4 years old. Ali Muhammad Zakaria, 3 years old. Janan Hamid Nasser, 1 years old. Sulman Wel Ahmed, less than 1 years old, months unknown. Juan Yahya Yusuf, 4 years old. Ilaf Hussein Ahmed, 2 years old. Rayan Abdullah, less than 1, months unknown. Hamza Wain Al-Ahmed, 3 years old. Marwa Hamza Nasser, 1 years old. Mia Yahya Yusuf, less than 1 years old, months unknown. Sarah Bilal Muhammad, 3 years old. Sobi Hamdan, 1 years old. Adam Hussam Amin, 3 years old. Nevin Khalid Saleh, 1 years old. Abdullah Muhammad Fadi, 4 years old. Sawar Rami Muhammad, 1 years old. Sarah Saleh, 15 years old. Malik Bilal, 12 years old. Ahmed Hassan, 11 years old. Noor Wissam, 9 years old. Aya Hussam, 8 years old. Nada Wissam, 7 years old. Mona Ahmed, 6 years old. Sharif Ashraf, 5 years old. Abdullah Muhammad, 13 years old. Ahmed Hussein, 12 years old. Samar Ahmed, 10 years old. Bara Hassan Ali, 9 years old. Yazan Rami Muhammad, 8 years old. Ali Muhammad, 7 years old. Samar Rami, 6 years old. Yusuf Rami, 5 years old. That is around 30 names of the total 5,000 children that have been estimated to have died in Gaza over the last 30 days. I've just said 30 names and it's taken almost 2 minutes to get through. Imagine if I sat here and said every single one, not just children, every single person of the estimated 20,000 that have been murdered. Say their names. These are not numbers. These are not statistics. These are lives. These are families. These are souls ripped apart. Say their names.
Remember I told y'all to keep an eye on the West Bank and the rise of settler terrorism? Well, these Zionist settlers decided to leave this lovely letter for Palestinians in the village of Deristia in occupied West Bank, threatening to massacre them if they do not leave the West Bank. And let's do a little group reading. You want war? So wait for the Great Nakba. Nakba is the name of the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians that occurred in 1948, where nearly 1 million Palestinians were either killed or forced to leave their land in order to establish the settler colony of Israel. It means catastrophe in Arabic. Here, they're saying that we're going to do that again to y'all. To the people of the enemy in the Jewish West Bank, the satanic organization of the Hamas ISIS thugs seeking to spread corruption on earth has committed the greatest historical mistake, declaring war on us. You wanted a Nakba similar to 1948, and by God, a great Nakba will descend on your head soon. You have the last chance to escape to Jordan in an organized manner, after which we will destroy every enemy and forcefully expel you from our holy land that God has written for us and from which he has commanded us not to turn away from. Grab your things immediately and leave wherever you are. Do you not think that we will come? I don't need to go into this, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, how disgusting and vile that is. However, to add to our case in proving that these Zionist settlers are terrorists, here we have in another Palestinian village where settlers decided to hang dolls covered in fake blood at the entrance of a school to obviously instill fear in the Palestinian children. In the village of Asawiya, just a few hours ago, a Palestinian farmer was killed while harvesting olives on his land, violently attacked by Jewish settlers. Can't really see it in the video because most of it's blurred, but he's literally still wearing the gardening gloves for when he was picking the olives. And mind you that this is in no way in reaction to what happened on October 7th. Zionist settler terrorism is one of the main ways that the settler colony of Israel utilizes to steal Palestinian land. It is part of the Israeli system. These terrorists are backed by Israeli occupation forces. When they commit these attacks and these killings, there are Israeli soldiers standing with them. And when a Palestinian is clearly the victim, somehow the Palestinians are the ones that are arrested and the settlers are free to go. This tool is so integral to the Zionist movement. It's actually how Israel was established. Back when Israel was being born, which we all know was a very violent process, when Israel was born in 1948, the whole piece of land didn't all of a sudden just convert to a Jewish majority land. The majority were Palestinians, but these Zionist settlers would go around massacring Palestinian villages and conquering them one at a time, supported by the Israeli military. It's literally how Israel was born. It was through settler violence. So keep that in mind, especially for those of y'all who are still learning about Palestine. Settler terrorism, settler violence sits at the foundation of the Israeli system. Just a reminder, in case we're forgetting, there was peace in the Middle East before Israel was created. It's not a coincidence that in 1948, chaos broke out and it hasn't stopped since then. Okay, it's not a coincidence that just so happens to be the year Israel was born. If you were to lay out all of the issues in the Middle East, from then until now, there's one common denominator. It's Israel. It wasn't the best of times because we were still under colonization with the British and the French, but things didn't get real bad until 1948. I mean, prior to British colonization, I'd say things were better when we were under the Ottoman Empire, but definitely post-48. It sounds obvious, but I think we often are fed so much crap from Western media, especially if you grew up in the West, where you were conditioned from a very young age to believe that all the problems in the Middle East stem from Arab and Muslims, because we are terrorists, we are innately violent people, and they have to bring the modernity, civility, and democracy to our people. So in case any of us have a little bit of that propaganda stuck in the back of our head, this is a reminder that things were fine before the white people came over. And when I say white people, I mean all European colonizers, Israelis, British, and French. And as a Muslim, I can't help but connect the dots. These are the people that Allah talks about in the Quran. This is what he warned us about. These kind of people who say that they're here for peace. They're really here for corruption and theft of power.
I love that quote when people say, if you ever wondered what you would have done during slavery or during the Holocaust, now you know. But let's just go a step further, because I'm pretty sure my name is on that canary list, whatever the fuck they've got going on, right? But I have a list of my own. I have a list of all the names of all the people who have been openly supporting Israel, all of the people who have been signing their names on the bombs that they want to get sent down on children. I will never forget them, and I will never let them forget. So if they're going to put our names on a list, we need to put their names on a list. And once this is all said and done, and they try to backtrack and make it seem like, oh, they're suddenly now for the good guys. No, I want there to be history books that will be printed out with their names and their faces so their bloodlines never forget. I want those books to be in every fucking library of every school. I want those books to be in the Library of Congress. I want their names, their family names, to feel shame for the rest I want their family name to be spit on for the rest of human history. I want them to feel shame for the rest of human history, because what's happening is all of the children whose parents and grandparents were marching against integrated schools, all of those white people who, when they were in high school or middle school or whatever, they were spitting on black children because they didn't want to go to school with black children. All of them, they've been trying to silence the history books. They've been trying to erase and whitewash history, to remove their pictures, their grandparents' pictures from those books, so that the world doesn't have to see who was doing these egregious acts, who was being so disgusting, what kind of low-level human being would do these awful things. They've been trying so hard to erase themselves from history, so we don't have to see who is responsible for that kind of evil. We will not let them get away with it this time. We will not let them get away with it this time. All the people who have signed to cancel Huda Beauty, all those names, they're calling for Huda Beauty to be canceled, and it's like 20,000 people have already signed some fucking crack-ass petition. Trust and believe, your names are never going to be forgotten. Your names are never going to be forgotten. I promise you that. And I pray... I feel like that's the only way we're actually going to get somewhere, is if we make a book and we take all these people's names and their faces and their family names, and we put it in this book, and we publish the book, so for the rest of humanity, we can see what kind of people would have supported slavery, what kind of people would have supported a Holocaust, because they are the very kind of people who are now supporting genocides.
So, the Palestinian Health Ministry released a 212-page document listing the names and ID numbers of all of the Palestinians that have been killed by Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. This is obviously in response to the incredibly irresponsible statement by the US president that he is not confident in the Palestinian report of the death toll. By the way, take notice that he says Palestinians and not Hamas. It is so fucking frustrating watching Palestinians have to extensively document their own genocide. The Palestinians in Gaza barely even have time to process the level of tragedy that's happening to them, because they are so focused on broadcasting to the world the level of devastation that they're currently undergoing. And the Western world has the absolute gall to instill doubt about what the Palestinians are saying. In almost every clip you see of Gaza, there are so many people running around with their cell phones filming everything they can, because they know that it is their only way that they can reach out to the outside world and say, we are here, we are dying, we need your help. And for the unmitigated gall to just go, I don't believe them. Meanwhile, the Israeli state can toss around AI generated photos, can publish phone calls that make no sense if you speak Arabic, and everyone just takes that as actual proof. Are you kidding me? The victims of a genocide should not have the burden of proof put on them to prove that they are the victims of a genocide. And yet that's what's happening in Gaza. And it's really disgusting.
This Palestinian woman, who's an Israeli citizen, was arrested for liking a post on social media. Israel just passed legislation that criminalizes the consumption of terrorist publications with up to 1 year's imprisonment. And based on what we know about Israel, this could mean anything that's pro-Palestine related. There's a word for this. It's called fascism. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, which are Palestinian territories, Palestinians are under bombardment, their cities are being destroyed, attacks by the Israeli army, attacks by settlers, which were just handed out thousands of guns and are being backed by the army. This is Jenin right now. All while over 2 million Palestinians in Gaza continue to be under bombardment, and 1 million of them are forcibly and violently displaced. Israel has been doing this for 75 years. It was their plan from day one. Displace, exterminate, and the Palestinians who are living in Israel face the consequences of fascist rule. We in the United States have freedom of speech, or something like that. Don't stop making noise. Don't stop taking action. Keep going. don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.